I'm trying to keep a straight face, but that's always unsuccessful for me. Hello everyone. Happy 2021. Welcome back to Restitching the Tapestry. I am your host, Donny Winter, and I am joined by my co-host, Ari Whipple, and we're really excited to be back and to bring you some new episodes talking about some pretty interesting things over the course of the next few weeks, of course. So as we wait for a few people to tune in, I just wanted to make a shameless plug, and I'm going to do it for Ari because that's what I do. Ari's book came out on the 1st of January, Full of Now, a collection of poems. Ari, do you want to say anything about it?
It's very personal. It's a look into bipolar. It is very good. I think you should buy it. It's on Amazon.
And I can second that it is very good because I read it and edited it and it was really fun. And yes, like we small writers really appreciate any support that we can get. So if you want to purchase copies of our books, mine is Carbon Footprint if you haven't gotten it yet. If you want to purchase copies of our books and share around the word, we really, really appreciate it. So
Carbon Footprint is also very, very amazing. I've read it several times over. I love it.
Ari, you're going to make me cry. I've had too much wine. Just kidding. What is your drink of choice this evening?
I'm drinking AHA. I'm drinking non-alcoholic tonight.
Oh, hey, that's totally okay. I had a cup of tea earlier and I finished it too quickly, so I went straight to wine. I am drinking a peach, like a type of peach wine that I got from Aldi because Aldi unexpectedly has some really good wine. But so did you have a good holiday season and New Year?
I did, and I had a good birthday. Did you have a good birthday?
I did. Uh, Ari and I, both being Capricorns, have our birthdays only days apart, so we both got to celebrate our birthdays around the New Year. So I did have a good time. So Iggy's here, Kevin is here, and Kevin's drinking as well. Cheers to that. Rogue Agent Killer Rodan, Sophia is here. It's so good to see all of you. Welcome back. We are happy to have you with us. So, um, but before we get to the actual focus of our show, we do want to do a couple of things first. Obviously, the first thing I want to do is read our show's mission statement. So, many witness different atrocities, large or small, that fray the social fabric around us, and much of the time, many may feel powerless and know not how to address it. This fray has gotten worse with the rise of social media, and we're able to share in this collective trauma as it goes viral. And it kind of creates this situation where we're able to experience grief on a mass scale. So that begs the question of what can we do to mend the communities who have seen this considerable tragedy? Through our show, our goal is to restitch the tapestry in a social way, in a social justice fashion, through conversation, creativity, and action. And our goal is to also do this through educating. So, um, Tiffany Gray is here too. Before we before we talk about the topic, should we talk about current events?
Yes, we should.
Because that's what we do, you know.
Uh, what what happened on my birthday? The coup?
Oh God,
Can
it
we
was
talk
your
about the coup?
birthday. Oh, just a large swath of um,
Insurgents.
people stormed the Capitol, and it was a little bit unsettled, a lot of it unsettling. Um, so yeah, that's been obviously a huge part of the news the past couple of days. The president has been permanently banned from Twitter, at least on the main account that he has. And of course, we're getting very close to the inauguration of our next president. So things are very tense right now, aren't they? And I've
to say the
been
least.
yeah, I honestly, and you all have seen this in the last couple of videos that I've posted. I've just been really trying to process everything happening right now because it's been extremely unsettling. And I think that it continues to be the latest example that draws attention to the very distinct undertow of white supremacy that exists in our country. And we'll probably have future conversation about it, of course. But Ari, what was your reaction to
Well,
all that?
at the same time this is all happening, my aunt, who is a Trumper and an anti-masker, is texting my mom and saying that she, with her boyfriend, got on a bus and went to Washington D.C. to protest uh, protest Biden being
Oh, the
elected.
electoral college, yeah. Mhm.
So she went to that Trump rally and she was at the Capitol building when all of this is going down. She was one of the people who was there. And she said that she told my mom that it was a peaceful protest and that nothing bad happened and that the woman who got shot, it did not happen, and that it's all fake news, and that it was a peaceful protest, and that don't believe the fake media, that it's all Chinese Communist Party propaganda, that it's all in her head, and that it's all fake nonsense.
Wow. That again, like I mentioned a couple of videos ago, it's definitely a distinct example of rhetorical manipulation and what it can do to people, you know?
Yeah.
And keep in mind, though, that doesn't justify people when they just have desperate belief in those types of things, because
She's
people have choices. They can make the choice to believe in what they choose to believe, you know?
she still believes that Trump's going to be president on the 20th.
That's scary.
Yeah.
That is scary. I mean,
So,
despite all of it, I am glad that she wasn't injured at this event or anything like that, but still.
yeah.
Taylor is here. Hello, and Shayna's here.
So it's just like, so I'm sitting there and I'm like, it's my birthday, and I'm like, we're about to do cake, and like, I'm just tensely watching the news, and my mom is getting like all of these big long like lines of text from my aunt, just like these like nonsense texts of just like BS. Just just finger warrior texts. And I'm like, my sister and I are like, don't answer her, just cut her off. Just like don't respond to her. And just like, so we just like, and I'm just like, it's time to cut the cake. It's time to cut the cake. Happy birthday.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, like I remember thinking about that day. I was just like, I bet you Ari is having an interesting day today.
I was like, I need some wine. I finished off my bottle of wine that day. So I was just like, I can't do this.
Oh my goodness. So, but yeah, we just wanted to take a moment and reflect on that a little bit because, well, let's just say it warranted some conversation. Um, so let's talk about the topic of tonight's show. So we've been
Something we
wanting
all need in this time of crisis.
right. This episode is one that we've been wanting to do for quite a while, and individually, Ari and I have both talked about our therapy experiences on our channels, but we wanted to come together and have a conversation about our therapy experiences, what it's done for us, maybe some challenges and some moments of benefit that we've experienced from therapy. And yeah, so we're hoping that we might be able to shed some light on any questions, especially you may have if you have any questions in the chat box too. Igni says, "Oh my God, I just noticed you're growing your beard back, Donny. Looking good." It is the cold season, so no, it's actually about due for a trim because it's starting to look a little. I don't know. I'm gonna look like Gandalf the Grey here soon. I guess that's not necessarily a bad thing, but um, any chance to be Ian McKellen or Gandalf the Grey, I would take it. So, Ari, would you like to start us off with our conversation about therapy and talking a little bit about the benefits of therapy according to BetterHelp.com?
So some of the benefits of therapy is it's a sounding board, and I think that that's like pretty good like first. Like I feel like when you go to therapy, like you need someone to like pretty much like talk over things and just like have somebody to like just share your thoughts with and just like kind of get out of your own head, because I feel like um when I go to therapy, like sometimes I'm just like I'll just cycle and I'll just like I'm just like thinking over things and just thinking over things and just overthinking things, and just like sometimes it's just good to like talk it out with somebody and just like have somebody listen to you and like get paid to listen to you, because like it's one thing to like talk to your family, and because like they'll be biased and they won't. It's just good to have like an alternative opinion and just like somebody who's like kind of more objective and kind of like on the outside, like they don't have like motivations, and like they're not like close to you, and they're kind of more professional, and they're kind of like more on the outskirts of you. They're more in a like professional capacity, and like they'll kind of like give you better advice than like if your mom gave you advice, or if your sister gave you advice, or if your like brother or someone gave you advice. It's like somebody like who you can kind of like sit there and talk to and kind of have them sound off.
I think that's an excellent point because I know when it comes to like friends or family or significant others, like listening to like difficulties we're experiencing, there's this kind of filter of emotion that we have to also worry about. How is our mental health affecting those people? Those people also, when they're giving feedback to us, have that same concern, to worry about. Because, I mean, and it's not to say that our well being isn't important to therapists, but they are trained to be objective, like you were saying, and they aren't held back by any um, insecurities or anything like that due to a personal connection. So that's what I really appreciate, especially. Um, Taylor
Then
says, "My therapist asked me suddenly why I don't think I deserve to be loved, and I sure didn't see that one coming." Yeah, that is another thing about therapy that's very beneficial. It's because it kind of coaxes us to look beyond, like you were saying, Ari, those typical cycles that we're in on our own wavelength, because we get stuck in these points of repetition, and not everybody does, mind you, but I know, like, for both of us, we've talked about that before, and therapy's kind of helped us branch out beyond those things. So, what else?
Oh, and Shayna,
Oh, yeah.
that's actually one of our points. Therapy has taught us that healing from trauma is messy. That is actually one of the points. Is overcoming past trauma is one of the benefits of therapy is overcoming past traumas. Uh, so it is good to go to therapy to overcome past traumas. So that is one of the benefits of therapy is overcoming those things in your past that have been traumatic. So uh, it is good to go to therapy to like work through all of those things that have been problematic. Um, so
Agreed.
yeah.
It looks like based on the comments, like a lot of our viewers tonight have had therapy experiences. So that's really good to know because maybe some, like I see many of you are sharing some of your experiences. So Tiffany says, I finally started therapy back in October. I actually knew my therapist beforehand because he runs the autism social group I've been going to for years. So it sounds like that probably that uh, understanding of you that your therapist had probably helped in some way. Taylor says, for me, having a therapist similar in age to my sister was helpful and relatable. And Kevin mentions I read a lot of self-help books too. So those definitely can be helpful. I know my own therapist has recommended certain self-help books for me too. And then David, last but not least, says the cure is in the pain, as we say in counseling. So David, I have no doubt that some of your experiences will definitely add to our conversation here tonight. Hi, Arby. It's good to see you. We've just been talking about some benefits of therapy up until this point. So, Ari, what is the next one that we should note?
Achievement of goals. So sometimes when you come with a therapist, one of the things that you do with a therapist is sit down and come up with a list of goals that you have in therapy, about what you want to achieve in therapy, like um, working through traumas, or working through, or like talking about something, or what I wanted to do in therapy with my therapist is, I wanted to get to the root of my delusions, and work through some of the issues that I was having with some of my problems, and working on some of the problems that I was having with my delusional disorder. So that was something that we were achieving as far as those goals. So like undermining my delusions. So achievement and goals is like working on the things that you may have trouble with, and like maybe, and like another one of them is like purging bad habits, but like achievement of goals and purging bad habits are kind of one and the same. It's sort of like things that you want to change and do. You kind of work on those goals together, and talk through them in therapy, and then take those and kind of make assignments for yourself in your everyday life to make better habits in your everyday life.
Right. Yeah, like I know goal setting for me has been extremely significant because it helps us realize that progress can be made, that things can get better in some way. And that takes work, that takes effort. And my therapist was very um upfront about like the work needed. And thankfully, like I'm like when I my first therapy appointment, I like brought notebooks. I'm just like taking notes. I'm like, give me things to do, you know? But keep in mind, like not every therapy experience is going to be like that either. Like everyone responds to different things and may have different needs, or different ways that they can meet their goals, right? So, I know for me, my biggest obstacle that I've been working on in therapy has been my obviously my mental health, my depression. but also my self-deprecation, which kind of goes hand in hand with that, because it's like I have really, really bad self-deprecation, as you've known from videos that I've posted before, or even know in person. So it's been helpful. Like I've been able to kind of spot moments before I start to self-deprecate and kind of condition myself to start asking myself questions as to why I am trying to do that. I've been taught some tapping techniques to like do some tapping to kind of like stimulate chemical responses, um, to kind of help uncondition myself from that self-deprecation, and that's been helpful in a lot of different situations too. What else? Did we get through all of those?
Um, oh, and healthy coping mechanisms. And on there's one more after that. But healthy coping mechanisms help you deal with just just helping you deal with situations better. Help you when you come up with a situation, just help you kind of build a tougher skin with the things that happen in your life. If you um, come up against more obstacles, it helps you face those challenges with a sense of the ability to overcome those challenges with uh, more of a sense of confidence.
Indeed, indeed. And largely, I know that therapy has also helped me unlearn unhealthy coping mechanisms, because there's healthy and unhealthy ones, and um, I know for me, uh, I mean, self-deprecation was kind of a coping mechanism for me, because or an unhealthy coping mechanism for me, because that would be kind of like my go-to for any type of like social situation that made me uncomfortable. I would self-deprecate as a means to explain or rationalize to myself why that situation was making me so uncomfortable, and a variety of different other reasons why I would self-deprecate. Um, but through learning some positive coping mechanisms like that tapping I was mentioning, I'm focusing on creative outlets when I'm feeling those things. That's been very beneficial to me.
Kevin said, my therapist told me to take up boxing. That's a good coping mechanism.
Yep, yep. So like I think Tiffany says, I believe that growing a thicker skin is like growing a tree. It takes time, care, and patience. It
I like
does.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I do like that for sure. And I think it also it takes a certain degree of acceptance and patience with yourself, and knowing that that thick skin doesn't always have to maintain the same level of thickness all the time. We're going to encounter things in life that affects our mental health when we may not realize it, when we may not anticipate it. So I know for me, I really need to practice what I'm preaching, because whenever something new I come across affects me, I get really self-deprecating, because I always think that immediately I should be fine and should be over it, but that's not always the case.
But that's what your support group is also there for, and that's what your therapist is there for, to help you work through the things that you may not necessarily be able to work through on your own.
Exactly. Yep. So we do have, were there any other ones that I missed?
The last one was improved relationships. So it helps you when you, and I have done this, I do this all the time. Whenever I have a fight with my siblings, whenever I have a fight with my mom, whenever I have a fight with uh, anyone, I go immediately to my therapist and I'm like, look, had a fight. Here's what happened. What should I do? And we talk about it and we go work through it and we go, here's what I can do in my capacity. and then I go and do it. So it makes it so that I am able to control what I can control and do what I can do in my abilities. And it makes it so that it makes my relationships better because you know it and it just makes it so that it's just made my relationships better over the years. So I just because otherwise I would just have to be rushed. Like I sometimes I would just say things that were just the wrong things and just like not think about what I was doing, and just kind of act in a certain way without really thinking about the consequences of my actions. It makes me think about the consequences of my actions a little bit more because I'm again using my therapist as a sounding board. So
I
yeah.
really like the way you described that. Like, and that's been very much my experience too, getting therapy. It's been very instrumental in helping me understand how to explain when I am going through bouts or shifts or mood shifts or anything like that. Because prior to therapy, my immediate reactions when I'm going through things like that would be to either shut down or to get standoffish with people or to kind of recluse myself, you know? Sometimes those would go hand in hand. In therapy, like obviously it's helped me considerably in overcoming those a lot of the time, but they're still going to happen, from time to time. But it's given me the capability of communicating it more effectively, and that's improved relationships because when people in my life can anticipate and understand what's happening, it it makes it a lot easier for all of us in a way. And it makes us all more empathetic toward one another and how my mental health affects other people, how other people's reactions to my mental health affect me, and realizing that it's just kind of like this cycle. So that's like being able to understand and visualize that. I have to thank my therapist for it because it's been very helpful.
Yeah, it's true. And I feel like I've been really successful with this therapist that I have now. I have not always been successful with therapists. I've had therapists going back to my teenage years. I have not always been successful in therapy, but the most recent therapist I've had since being diagnosed with bipolar, I've been successful.
Good, good. And we're going to talk a little bit about non-successful experiences here in a moment too, because of course, we have a series of discussion questions because there's a lot to talk about. We could probably do this in like 2 episodes, come to think about it. Um, but first and foremost, we've like our first discussion question was, what do you get out of therapy? And we've already talked a little bit about that, right? Were there any other things that you get out of therapy, Ari, that you want to touch on that you think are significant?
I think that like the biggest thing I get out of therapy is just like it just provides me like a week because I go weekly. Um, just like someone to turn to for like to touch base with about like just the problems that I'm having with my life and just like giving me like an outlet for like if I need someone to talk to about like just what's going on in my life and like just if I need someone to talk to because like I don't always like I have my mom and I have my sister and I have my other sister, but like if I need someone else, like a professional to talk to about like just what's going on in my head, what's going on with my meds, what's going on with like my bipolar, like if I just need someone, I have that.
Right. Same here. I think for me, one of my biggest insecurities is coming off crazy because with with being diagnosed with bipolar 2 and having a lot of depression difficulties and having a lot of like problematic relationships in my past where toxic people have told me that I'm crazy if I'm depressed, and like I've had that conditioning where I'm utterly terrified of people thinking that I'm just this unhinged person. And therapy has, like, one positive thing that I've taken away from it is that it's helped me realize that I am not crazy, that there is actually a term for um, what my mind is doing, what the chemicals or lack thereof are doing, and that it can be managed. And that it's not just me being this irrational, selfish person, there is an actual undertone and under thing happening with it, with all of that. So, um, oh, Taylor can relate. Taylor says, Donnie, I'm with you. I've been told my whole life I'm evil. Therapy helps to disrupt that cycle. It does, for sure.
Kevin,
Um,
I don't believe you're crazy. I don't think that anyone is crazy. I just think that they have problems that they're dealing with.
agreed. Agreed.
Everyone has something that they're dealing with, and I dislike the term crazy because crazy denotes like a sense of like out of control and like a sense of like a societal like stigma, and I just don't like the term crazy because
Yeah,
I
it
just think
is.
it I just think it has like a social irresponsibility.
It's very much ableist language, and
Yeah.
like I know I've been really striving to remove that word from my own language in general. Like instead of saying like that's so crazy, say something different from that. And and I think the truth is that that word has been so conditioned in all of us because it's just so widely used.
And
Um,
it's crazy and insane. Ugh,
it
it's
is
like
crazy,
those.
insane, unhinged, hysterical, as Taylor just mentioned. And I think for me, crazy, the word crazy definitely denotes that there is this normality to aspire to or to ascribe to when it comes to neurofunction, right? We've used word terms before like neurodiversity, and I do believe that people who have mental health journeys are neurodiverse in their own way because the chemicals in our minds um, make us think and interpret things and react to things differently. So, like, I do believe that words like crazy definitely it subverts neurodiversity significantly. I'm catching up on the comments too. So, um, you guys have some really great feedback on. I mean, you always usually do, but very great feedback tonight. Um, and David says it precludes people from having to deal with or accept that people have mental health issues, and it's stigmatizing. It is stigmatizing, right? And that's very significant to note because people still get really uncomfortable even having discussions about mental health. So many people still refuse to believe that it is a thing. Tiffany says that is one of my biggest insecurities. Um, I have a lot of childlike tendencies, and I'm 33, and I've been heavily criticized for it. Now I'm scared of people thinking that when I talk about Smeagol, who, I mean, is a very significant aspect of your life, right? Um, like characters like those are very significant aspect in a lot of people's lives, and I don't think that should ever be invalidated, because when you invalidate that, you don't know how it will affect the person that finds the individuals or the characters significant, right? Oh, Rogue, thank you. Hair flip. But I really, for me, there have been a lot of phenomenal benefits from therapy. And I will say that like therapy isn't for everyone. There are some people who um, aren't very comfortable with therapy because talking to a stranger might be a very invasive thing. So like we like even though we're sharing our experiences, we also want to establish that we are not professionals in this. We're just using our experiences as a basis. And I do know people that therapy has not worked at all for, despite trying multiple different therapists. So it sometimes requires different variables, whether it be developing strong support networks, maybe potentially medication, so on and so forth. Those are other options, and some of them can be used in conjunction with one another too.
Yeah, my first experiences with therapy were unsuccessful. When I was 17 and depressed and suicidal, um, I had problems with therapy. It just didn't work out the way I wanted it to. They had different ideas about my they thought was wrong with me, and so it just was just very not successful. They thought I had anger management issues instead of that the fact that I was depressed. So they kind of came at me with this like air that I was like angry instead of depressed. So I didn't understand like how it was just, and like they talked the whole time instead of allowing me like any, so I just listened to this old lady talk at me my whole sessions instead of listening. So I just, because I was a teenager, so I just like listened to this old lady like
Lecture
lecture
you.
me. Yeah. And she just wore cat sweaters.
I mean, cat sweaters are awesome, but I would wish to have cat sweaters myself.
Right.
But yeah,
But this was
that
back in like the early 2000s, like 2001, 2002. And so I was just like, and so I was just like, kind of just like, I just kind of tuned her out after a while because I just like, this isn't gonna work. And like, I just sort of gave up on it and just thought it was just like stupid and just didn't think it was gonna work. And then the second time I went to therapy was after I got out of an abusive relationship where uh, I was emotionally abused, and I wanted to find out what I was doing wrong in the relationships that I was having with men because it was the second time I had been emotionally abused in a narcissistic relationship. And the therapist basically gave me the advice that I needed to get a dog. And like that was her big advice.
uh,
so so I was like,
what
okay, so I guess I'm just like not connecting with like my therapist very well. Like I'm just not doing this right. So
sorry, you just need a dog to keep you company. That's all you need.
I just needed to like have I just needed that I was just like emotionally needy and like I just needed to have like the un the undivided attention of a dog.
And to be told that one's emotionally needy, that is so gaslighty and so invalidating, especially when you do have a mental health condition or difficulty or struggle that you're enduring, you know? Wow.
So I just was like I kind of just like thought that therapy was bad for a long time and just didn't think that like found thought that therapy was for me because like I had such bad experiences with therapy, so I understand where people are coming from when they've had bad therapy experiences because I've been through the worst therapy experiences that you could possibly go through. But I've also been through like really good therapy experiences, like the therapy I've been through recently, where I came out of like being in jail and having diagnosed with bipolar and like all of that, and like having a therapist that like was very kind and gentle and listened to me and let me sit there and cry, and like he was like just talked me through like some like really bad mental health days that I was having, and just was like, you know, kind of validated my feelings and just like tried to like talk about some of like just some of the worst things that I went through. So,
Yeah. Kevin, Kevin asks, what is gaslighting? And gaslighting is essentially where a person tries to convince you that your reality isn't what it seems to be by making you either feel crazy, making you feel as though you're not perceiving things the way that said person is perceiving them. That's my understanding of gaslighting. There are a few different definitions of it, um, but yeah, Ari, I think that's so important. Having a therapist that is empathetic, that does listen. I'm trying to find that comment that David posted a few minutes ago. It was a comment that said, "Counseling is 80% listening, 15% process, 5% talk." Like that is so significant. And first of all, I want to say that I am not. Well, I am grateful that my negative therapy experiences haven't been as challenging as the difficult ones you've experienced. Most of mine involve like I had a few therapists when I was in college because I had one suicide plan. It wasn't an attempt, it was a plan, and I ended up going and um, getting therapy. It was right after I was sexually assaulted, and I was going through a lot of difficulties with coming out, along with that, and fitting into the LGBTQ plus community, being very isolated. And Ari knew me way back during this too, so I know that we had frequent conversations back then about these different things. But uh, some of my therapy experiences, like I kind of had like, I think it was like two or three therapists when I was going to college. The first person um, really didn't feel comfortable talking about LGBTQ plus related things, and that made it extremely difficult. There was kind of like this disconnect, and they didn't really know what to say, because like, and I could tell that they were uncomfortable. Mind you, though, since this was therapy at a university, I know that a lot of these therapists were in master's programs, like getting hours in order to add to their degree progress. So I did understand that. But the second one that I had really just, I don't know, like this person just didn't seem very engaging. They were very rigid with me. And there were a couple of moments where I was made to feel like I was, being over dramatic. Being over dramatic is one of my triggering things. Like if anybody ever makes me feel like I'm being over dramatic, man, do I shut down quickly. So like I almost gave up on therapy after that
yeah.
because I was just like, well, if this is me being over dramatic and overhyping everything, then I'm going to go write a sad poem about it and call it good, something to that degree. I eventually found a wonderful master student who was my therapist who had never had an LGBTQ plus individual, and in a way, like her working with me was very beneficial for her because it taught her how to interact and work with LGBTQ plus people. And this person was very empathetic and very open to listening and never made me feel like I was being burdensome or over dramatic or crazy or anything like that. So after that therapy experience, I really I started understanding that therapy was extremely important in my life. And of course, now over the past year that um, now that this last year that I found this therapist as like an older person in my 30s, like this individual has been very helpful for me, and I researched this person out. That's the one challenging aspect about therapy too, is sometimes you have to shop around for
Mhm.
a therapist that maybe meets your financial needs, or that meets maybe insurance needs, that is familiar with certain topics, that specializes in certain things. I know when I searched out my therapist, I looked for an individual who had experience with LGBTQ plus people, and I've not been disappointed at all. So Taylor says, Donny, I think people mistake your earnestness as drama. People are uncomfortable with sincerity and can't name it. That, yes, I have understood that. I think my therapist that I currently have has helped me understand that,
Mhm.
especially because um, like earnestness and forthrightness can be extremely intimidating for people, you know,
It's
and
true.
they kind of paint it as being something else so that they feel comfortable in its presence. So, oh, you guys are all sweet. So those are our challenges that we've experienced. So we've already kind of touched on what we found most rewarding about therapy. Did we have? I mean, I think we've comprehensively talked about that. Is there anything else you can think of, Ari?
No, I think that we should skip down to like number 6, like about cost,
Okay, good.
because I think that like for people who may not have be able to afford therapy, I think that like talking about like what you can do to go to therapy if you can't afford therapy, um like I feel like being able to go is important. So, like there's the sliding scale therapy. So, asking about sliding scale therapy, I feel like being able to do that, um, you can still go to therapy and pay less according to your pay, like your how much you make. My sister, when she went to therapy, for the little amount that she went to therapy, she paid on a sliding scale. She only paid like $50 a therapy session instead of like the 250 they were asking for. So it made it easier to go.
Bye, Taylor. Thank you for tuning in. It was good talking with you. Sliding scale there. Oh, yeah, like the I know I've had friends use various apps before. Um I'm trying to remember which one it was. I think it was the Talkspace app that I had a friend use before. And in certain ways it was helpful, but I think also going into doing therapy on an app, like you have to realize it's not going to be the exact same as other types of therapy too, you know. And I like when, and this kind of builds off from what I was talking about before. I think when researching therapists, it's very important that you do look at your therapist's or these therapists' backgrounds so you can familiarize yourself with them too. Because if you have a very specific thing that you're struggling with, knowing that there is somebody who specializes in something that can help you is probably going to be most beneficial. All right. That's not always the case, mind you, but in my understanding of it, from people that I know that have had therapy, it's been very helpful. I know we also have listed the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, the number being 1-800-273-8255. I have used the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline before, and it's been very helpful. Um, they're very they're specially trained people to talk to you when you are feeling like at your lowest, especially if you were contemplating taking your life or making plans or anything to that effect. So I've also talked with the Trevor Project, which is a specialty lifeline that works with LGBTQ plus people. That's also very significant. There's many different lifelines that specialize in specific areas. I know there is one, RAIN specializes in survivors of sexual assault.
Mhm.
Um, I've not used that one before, but I've had that one recommended to me before. Were there any other apps that you wanted to talk about, Ari?
I think Better Health was an app as well. That's kind of like Talkspace. You also can use apps like Calm, Headspace, and Expectful. Those are kind of like meditation apps. Those aren't like therapy apps, but those will help you kind of like bring you down if you're feeling like you need something to kind of like just kind of like bring you into a better headspace. So
Right.
those aren't quite like therapy apps, but they're kind of like tangential apps that will help you.
Right. Like I think that the interesting thing about struggling with mental health, and if you don't have access to therapy, like a lot of it in my own experience has been finding tools that can cushion things for me, you know? And whether it be journaling, doing other creative outlets, surrounding myself with people or support groups who I know will help encourage or talk me down from things. And also situation like understanding that there are like apps out there like you were mentioning that can supply with affirmations or be that one thing that can give me some sort of inspirational quote that can get me through something, listening to music. I think it's important if you don't have the capability of pursuing therapy to strive for finding tools for yourself. um, let's see.
I
Let's
also, if you contact NAMI, the National Association of Mental, what is it, mental health, they can hook you up with free mental health clinics or just possible free mental health if you're low income and have a need. Um, I actually have gone through NAMI before uh, because I'm on Medicaid. I went through Health West and I have a caseworker through not NAMI but through Health West who has worked with NAMI. So I do have a caseworker because of NAMI. So I do have that because and they have talked about getting me therapy through that before, but I have my own therapist personally because I have Medicaid, and he takes my Medicaid. But yeah, I could get other Medicaid or other therapy. So,
Yeah. Hmm.
but yeah, there's also uh, mentalhealth.gov that could help you as well, looking for therapy if you're low income.
I know we definitely. I know we also mentioned support groups briefly, I think. But in your communities, there may be support groups too that you can look toward and reach out to that may specialize in things. Um, I think that pretty much covers all of the ones that we found. I can't find, yeah, I think that covers all of them. So I think the last question that we have is a really good one to finish the latter part of our show with tonight. Um, the question of if you could tell someone who is nervous about therapy one thing about it that helped you decide to go to therapy, what would it be? Ari, would you
Um,
like to start?
Even though I had bad experiences with therapy, um, I didn't give up. I always said that I would always try again. And I never said that I was ever quite against therapy. Um, I just would I just always put it off, and, even when I was in Seattle, I I told myself that I was gonna go back to therapy again because I knew that I was depressed and that my life was going down a certain way. Even before my, mental health break, I knew that I wanted to go back to therapy, and I even, like, looked into it a little bit, but I just didn't have the time to go to a therapist. I even had, like, a little note in my, like, big, like, to-do list every day, and it was, "Look for a therapist," and I just didn't have the time or the inclination to, like, find a therapist, and it's just you put it off and you put it off, and you just think, like, "Maybe I'll just wait for another day," and you just think, like, "Tomorrow will come," and, like, but the days will pass and, like, it's gonna pass regardless of whether or not you go, and, like, wouldn't it be nice to have somebody that you can talk to that will help you get through the worst of your days, and, like, when you're feeling low and when you need someone to talk to and can help you be there.
Yes. Wow, that really, yeah, that really resonates with me too. I know for me, especially last year when I made the decision to start therapy, my partner and my friends were very significant. Oh, Shayna.
I'm
We love
sorry,
you.
Shayna.
We love you, Shayna. You're wonderful.
You're so wonderful, Shayna. I'm sorry you're crying.
I hope it's a good cry, a catharsis cry. I know those always make me feel relieved sometimes. Um, but when it came to making the decision to go to therapy this past year, a lot of it was an influence initiated by my partner and my friends and family. And it got to the point where I couldn't remember the last time I had had a good mental health day. I was continually having mood shifts. I was feeling suicidal probably 5 out of the 7 days of the week, and a varying degrees of severity. Like, it was a very difficult time, and it was a long stint of feeling that way. And my partner said something very interesting to me. He said, and he's a person who's also been on his own journey too, but he told me, Donnie, you deserve to feel good and wholesome about the person that you are. You deserve to feel catharsis. You deserve to not have to be not remembering when your last good mental health day was. And when I started getting therapy, it was like it was almost like being underwater for a long time and finally breaching the surface and taking a deep breath. It was painful, but at the same time, it was so unbelievably relieving. And all it took was having that statement phrased to me the way that he phrased it to me, saying, like, Donnie, you don't deserve to, like, you deserve to feel so much better than you feel. And that
Mhm.
really was so significant to me. And I think that that's something that we also want to impart to all of you too. Like, you all deserve to feel content and satisfied and wholesome with the person that you are. And
Mhm.
if you aren't feeling that way, then I think it's worth considering, like, pursuing avenues like therapy potentially in order to help get yourself back on the track that you should be on, you
It's
know?
true.
Is everybody crying? Sobbing sessions.
Oh no.
I've had a few instances where I've cried with my therapist. Well, cried in front of my therapist before. As
I
I know,
cry I cry all the time in therapy. It's fine. You can go ahead and cry. It's okay.
yeah, I think that like we could even do an entire episode about like how our society seems to villainize crying as some sort of sign of weakness, but truthfully, crying is relieving in a certain way. It's very cathartic, and I think if you do end up crying, like I think if that is your body realizing that some sort of weight needs to be lifted in some fashion,
It's true.
you know. David says, I've been studying neuroscience all week. I've already cried too much. Oh no. Oh no. David, you got this. We have the utmost confidence in you. Oh my goodness. You know, we've had a solid 10 to 12 people tuning in all night tonight, and that's been so wonderful. We're so happy to have you all here.
We really appreciate you, all of you tuning in.
I know like Ari and I gain a lot of fulfillment in doing this series, and it's a catharsis for us, you know. Not to mention it gives us an excuse to hang out with one another and to hang out with all of you. So as we start to finish up this episode, I do want to do a shameless plug for both of our YouTube channels. If you would like to subscribe to Ari's channel, Strange Nothings, if for some reason you've not subscribed to my channel yet, I'm assuming you probably are since you're watching this. But if you haven't subscribed to my channel too, click like on our video, share comments, share the video around if you think that it might be beneficial for everyone else. And remember that the way you feel matters. And I will impart these words that my partner gave me. You deserve to feel good about the person that you are. Okay. Ari, do you have any parting words?
You deserve happiness.
Yes. And wholesomeness and fulfillment and all of that. All right, dear friends, you have a wonderful night, and we will see you next week. We love you. Bye.